All right, recording in progress.
It's official now.
Yeah. All right, Jen, over to you.
Okay, welcome all. I am Jen Anderson. I am the Madison chapter co-lead of Culture First, and I'm super excited to be here today for this talk about severance. Jessie asked me to take the lead on facilitating today, so she could be a participant, so that's pretty exciting, and I'm happy to be here with y'all. So thanks for inviting me. I'm also I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. If those of you don't really know where Madison is, it's in Wisconsin. Anyway, so we're here to talk about severance and the future of work. And let's just dive right in. Getting started with what's our purpose? We want to really explore the show and the complexities that it showed us all about work and life and how we show up in different ways depending on where we're at, how we balance ourselves and our different selves between work and life. Lots of comments and ideas around culture, and then how do we identify ourselves? How do we divide our personal and professional identities in the modern workplace? So excited to hear from you all today. We've got 5 speakers that we're going to hear from, and then we'll also have some time to open it up to the community. So more on that in a minute. Just a quick reminder that this is a community-led event, not a Culture Amp event. We are recording and we are going to share some highlights later on, so watch for that. But really just want to make sure that this is a space where we can discuss some topics that are bold, maybe a little bit sensitive. So again, we want to be inclusive and respectful of everybody's different viewpoints. So this is me. I already introduced myself. And just a quick little intro, as we always do for any of our Culture First events, sharing again a little bit about our purpose. We are a group of people around the world united in the shared belief that a better world of work is possible. And we have 5 core principles. So while you may have seen these before, we really believe in reinforcing these every time we have a little gathering of people. And so, as I already mentioned, just a reminder, foster belonging and acceptance, be willing to reflect and to grow. So we might all learn some things through this conversation. I don't doubt we will. Have the courage to be vulnerable, right? To maybe share something that feels maybe a little uncomfortable. And really emphasizing action. What can we take away? I'm really curious to hear how we end this conversation today. What are some actions we can put into place that we learned from our conversations around severance? And then just keeping it real here. This is focused on connection. We're not trying to do any business promotion here. So these are our lovely speakers. Thank you all for volunteering to share your perspective today. I'm very excited to have you all here, and I have not met everyone, so welcome and thanks for being here. As I mentioned, we're going to give each speaker 3 minutes to kind of share how severance has impacted them. But before we do that, we're going to start off with a couple of fun polls. Are you ready, Jessie? For the poll situation? Okay, good. So this is a Slido poll. And is it showing up for y'all? Okay, because I do not see it on my end. Thank you. Okay, so first question is, would you undergo the severance procedure? And you'll see that Jessie and I only gave 2 choices. We didn't allow for a maybe. We're like, let's just make them choose. Yes or no? Okay, so I'm not seeing the poll at all on my end. So can you keep me updated, Jessie, on
My gosh, this is awesome. Okay, 89% said no, but 11% said yes. This is so good.
Okay. 89% said okay. All right. Next one.
Okay.
Are we ready?
Yep. All right, let's go.
If you could be any character from the show, which would you be? Now we honed in on the main characters, so macro data refinement and the 2 eerie bosses. I can't wait to see how this comes out. Oh, I have to click to a different tab to see the screen. I
Okay, I
thought,
was gonna say, can you see it now?
yes, I can.
Wow, Milchick
Milchick, interesting.
did not see this coming.
I did not see this coming.
0 people picked Harmony.
Who did? Nobody.
No one picked Harmony.
She had a rough life, apparently. Okay, let's go, Milchick.
And then tied across the board for Mark, Kelly, and Irving.
Look at that. Nobody wants to be
Wow.
Dylan. Dylan is the one that did the old stretch at the end. Yeah, that's all I picture for Dylan.
Oh my God.
Okay, are we ready? Go to the next
Yeah.
poll. Okay. What makes you want to discuss severance as it relates to the future of work? And this is just open text, so we'd love to hear,
Also
quick sentence or a
anonymous.
few words. Sorry, Jesse, talked over you.
No, you're good. Also anonymous.
Oh, anonymous, thank you.
Yeah. So yeah, in case anyone wants to share.
Oh, it's not as scary as reality. Oh my goodness. Oh my gosh, this is great.
Oh yes. Whoever put, is the show really as dystopian as some say, or do we have those scenes in today's working world? Yes. Heavy plus.
How about if you've ever worked as the head of HR, you'd understand wanting to be severed. Okay, I want to talk to that person.
Oh my
Wow,
God. Whoever shared that, thank you for being here. I appreciate you for doing what you
100%.
do.
Oh my gosh.
Ah, so awesome.
Okay, great. Are we able to save these, the
Yeah,
Slido
for sure.
responses?
For
Okay,
sure.
because it would be fun to come back to that when we kind of synthesize our takeaways.
Can we get
Um,
a pulse of like how many people have not seen the show? And like that's okay if you haven't, but maybe give us like a raise hand or a comment. Okay, has everyone seen it? Has
everyone.
everyone seen all season 1 and season 2? Yep. Okay.
Mhm.
Great. Multiple times. Oh my gosh. Okay, great. Uh,
Okay, so for this conversation, we would like to focus on season one, just because there's a lot to take in. And season one really sets the stage for, you leave your work self at work and you leave your home self at home. So I'd love to hear from our speakers. And we can talk about anything related to season one. So is any one of the speakers interested in going first? Thanks, Jesse. Do I see a hand raised?
yeah,
Maybe come
Baha.
off mute.
Got you. All right, we're gonna spotlight you. We're also gonna set a timer. Jen, you want to set the
I
timer?
got the timer going. Go for it.
Well, we started already. Okay. Hey, everyone. My name is Baha. I'm an experienced designer on a mission to end loneliness, one shared experience at a time. And this show really stuck with me because we spend a third of our adult lives at work, 8 hours a day out of the 24 hours. And so that's a lot of time to either feel connected or feel disconnected. And I think workplace loneliness is something we don't talk about enough. And the show, I think, really highlighted that. I think the first time I was exposed to this was in 1999 during Office Space, if anyone remembers that. It was the first glimpse. And I think Severance took it to like a whole new level. The dystopian love letter to disconnection, I think, is how I describe Severance. Um, the biggest thing that caught my attention, I think, that was the culture at Lumen and how it was cult-like rather than culture-led. And it was sort of built on this control or obedience. And it almost had like a religious reverence of the founder, Keir, and the corporate dogma around that kind of stuff. And the quote from season 1 where he said that the surest way to tame a prisoner is to let them believe they're free, I think really captured Lumen's like entire vibe and strategy. And it gives them the illusion of autonomy, but keeping them tightly controlled. So I think Lumen's culture was really what stuck out to me the most. They valued compliance over creativity, loyalty over authenticity. And I think if we're not careful, we may already be there in some workplaces. And if we're not intentional and create real life workplaces, it can start to look a lot like Lumen if it hasn't already. We just may have better branding and better office snacks in real life than they do. But I think at the end of the day that the future of work, we have to be really intentional about fostering joy and connection and belonging in the workplace. Otherwise, we're headed down a really wild path. So that's all I'll say. That's me. Love the first show. If you haven't seen the second season,
Totally agree.
Yes. Oh my gosh, can we all, if you're able to, come off mute, give Baha a little love, a little appreciation, or just some reactions in the chat even.
Woo, woo, woo.
Thank you, thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
He deserves a marching band. Or a watermelon party.
Yeah, what
Definitely
kind of
watermelon
snacks would you
party.
come up with that would be better than melons? I'm not sure.
Oh, that was awesome.
All right, perfect.
A dystopian love letter to loneliness. Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh. So good.
So good. And we all are eating it up, right? That's interesting. Okay. All right. We have our next speaker. Who's wanting to jump in? Hannah? Okay. I'm going to spotlight you because I just learned how to do this.
So thank you so much, Jennifer and Jesse, for giving me a chance to talk about Severance. I have been a fan of this show since it dropped in 2022. So I'm the one who actually waited 3 years for season 2 to come out. And like we all admitted that we've all seen it multiple times, more times than we would like to admit. Just because, when you go back to some of the scenes, they hit different now that you know what's coming up. So I would really recommend rewatching some of those iconic scenes again. And when I posted about this event on LinkedIn, one of the comments said, the talking points on this are going to be endless. So how to hone it in, I thought I'd go over the employee life cycle and just highlight a couple of moments that matter. And then maybe we can have a discussion in that context afterwards as well. So obviously, you have to start with the first scene, the onboarding. Helly's onboarding with her on the board, literally. And, the scene, it's so cold and it's so dehumanizing. And not just for Helly, but also for Mark, because he has to follow the book and he's completely looking at the camera constantly and afraid of what corporate will think. And his instincts telling him that, you need to address her in a one-on-one, you need to address her personal requirements at this moment and her panic. And that actually eventually just sets the tone for the rest of the show. You get to know what the severed floor is going to be like, what the culture at Lumen is going to be like. So that's like a real onboarding in the world of work. It sets the tone for what your relationship with your employer is going to be like for new hires. So how humanely you do it, how intentionally you do it is important. And then I want to talk about Mark's promotion, which was another moment like that in episode 1. He's just found out Petey, his best friend and colleague, is not coming back to work. There is no moment to celebrate or, actually go over what loss he's feeling, both personally and professionally. And the acts that corporate is doing are so perfunctory. He's given a blue card, which is exactly like the one that he's had before. So no change. They've not prepared. Board has nothing to say. say for him. Silence on the other end, and a handshake on request is available. So, what promotions shouldn't be about. It should be about rewarding him for his achievements, not like there's a slot here and you can fill it. You'll do, but more about rewarding him and about his career growth and talking about all those kinds of things when you're talking about promotions. And then I think, as mentioned, the relationship, the culture, in way the leadership cascades down to, the board treats Kobil in a very manipulative and controlling way. And then she does the same with Milchik, and then he does the same with the MDR team. And that's what we realize, that managers are that link between leadership and culture. So whatever tone the leadership is wanting to model and have echoed in the organization will go through the managers, and how you want to do that depends on top leadership at the end of the day. And then so many other things like the reward parties we've talked rewards that we've talked about, lack of recognition, no collaboration between departments, in fact, siloed over fear and resentment towards each other. And then the trust between colleagues is about anti-leadership, not about with the organization, we're going to build this together. So, but I think the most important thing that stood out was also the lack of mental health support. So Mark is grieving, Irwin is unraveling, Heli, and there's nobody who notices it. And then Heliar actually attempts to commit suicide, and there is no room for anybody to provide her care or give her time. So I think, like Baha said, if we don't create workplaces that are actually people-focused and look after this, then we're ending towards that ending that we had in season 1 with a rebellion against the company and Irving saying, let's burn this place down. So a moment to reflect. Thank you.
Oh, that's great, Hannah. I love how you framed it in the employee life cycle. That's really interesting. I didn't think about that before, starting with the onboarding on the cold, hard table. Yeah, that's excellent. Thank you. Appreciate it so much.
Love for Hannah. Woo, 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 woo. So many good things. Oh.
Okay. Who do we have next? Yvonne? Okay, let's go.
Yeah. Wow. So one of the themes that I thought was really interesting throughout both seasons, but got kicked off in season 1, obviously, was the use of AI and the redefinition of work, right? Like it really does hint towards this future where while they're still using people, there are elements of artificial intelligence that I think is thematic and kind of speaks to where we're headed in terms of maybe new forms of severance, right? Dividing tasks between humans and machines, and really driving us towards what constitutes truly human work and the risk of like losing personal agency, if you will, within the process. I think it also speaks to the expectations of compartmentalizing, right? This dynamic of professional and personal identity, switching between, if you will, digital tools and platforms throughout our days. We're already doing that on a continuum. And so I think the show does a really great job of highlighting that. And furthermore, how we think about what is the, I guess you could say, invisible severance that is becoming so common now because of technology blurring these boundaries between work and life. I think about it in the context of art. My husband's an artist, and the things that are being digitally created on the fly through artificial intelligence versus actual art that is made with the hands, that's made with the heart and the soul. Same thing with writing as an art form as well. And so I think the show does a really good job of speaking to that and giving us some cautions to make sure that we don't fall down that rabbit hole, trap into that dynamic. What it means to go fully automated, as many organizations and cultures are trying to do, and kind of almost in a regard gutting the soul of the workplace, which is always about the people, right? The people who are bringing their whole human selves to the workplace. And so Severance really speaks to that division that has been created, and is that real? Should that be real? And what happens when it's real? And so I think it's a cautionary tale for all organizations to be aware of the proliferation of artificial intelligence, technology, and the impact that that's having on the human experience in the workplace.
Awesome. Thank you,
Fire.
Yvonne. Woohoo!
So
Appreciate that.
good. Invisible severance. Pop off, Yvonne.
Yeah.
Woo!
Happening all the time. All right. Multitasking here. Let me get my timer set up. Okay. All right. Who do we got next? John Jeff. Excellent. I'm spotlighting you. Let's go.
I'm going to continue, Yvonne, with what you said about invisible severance, because I think that the scary reality is like we're already kind of severed. And it's probably scarier than, scarier in different ways than the actual procedure, because we're conscious of it and we consciously make a choice every day to sever parts of ourselves. And over time, it starts to blur. And it reminds me, I'm going to nerd out for a second. So when I first saw the show, it reminded me of a concept called psychic prison, which comes from a book called Images of Organizations by Gareth Morgan. And he uses the metaphor to describe how organizations function. And the whole idea is that people in organizations are often trapped in their own thoughts, beliefs, values, assumptions, unconscious patterns. And of course, like this isn't a literal place, it's a construct, but it is a reminder that it's a construct that can be limiting and then also can find its way into your non-work life. And I go back to the idea of values within organizations, and we oftentimes use values within organizations or the mission to create coherence and connection to one another. But it gets really dangerous when those values become weapons. And I think of this as any tool can be a weapon if it's used improperly or without understanding what it exists for. And so when we think about it, in some way, we have voluntarily subjected ourselves to this severance by showing up to work. And I think that the concept of authenticity, which I could spend a whole 3 more days talking about, comes up as well, because for many people, especially women, people of color, people who identify as LGBTQIA+, it's a protection not to show up authentically. And as much as organizations preach authenticity and bringing your whole self to work, there's a really great TED Talk by Jodi Ann Burry called The Myth of Bringing Your Whole Self to Work. And she's actually writing a book out later this year called Authenticity, where it talks about the performative nature of work, not just for those who lead the organizations, but for those of us who show up every day and have to consciously choose which version of ourselves we display for the organization. And sometimes that even varies person to person, where you feel comfortable being yourself with one person and not another. And I'll wrap it up by saying, like, I jokingly refer to my innie as corporate Johnny, and it's like the role I play when I have to be a version of myself that can survive and thrive within the organizational mode or model that I'm a part of.
Thanks, John Jeff. That's great. And some of the comments in the chat I'm really resonating with. It's exhausting. I could not agree more. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Let's give it up for John Jeff.
John Jeff.
Thanks for sharing that. Okay.
A hug.
Oh, so much on this buffet table to discuss. Anybody else want to chime in here or maybe build on something that was just said, either by one of our speakers or something that came up in the poll? You can just feel free to come off mute.
I'll speak. I'm Badiana. Hi, everyone. This is such a great conversation. Yes. I'm going to talk about the comment that John Jeff made. I loved that you mentioned it can vary from person to person, because even though I'm in an organization that I really love, that for the first time I do feel like I can bring more of my authentic self to the space, I'm very highly aware that I turn on corporate Barbie Badiana, depending on who I'm speaking to and like how their interactions with me. Like I have to protect myself from the way that they posture towards me or the assumptions that they make about me. So that was such a critical point that you made. It was very specific, and I appreciated that you brought that up.
I'll chime in too, which is like I think I grew up my whole life. Like my mom was a professional musician in the Kansas City Symphony for like 40 years. And so I grew up with this idea of like, what's my one thing going to be? And because I thought that's how it worked, you know? And then as an adult, I'm like, actually, that's like totally not how it works for like a lot of people and like the majority of people, you know? And I think like when she retired, she had like this massive identity crisis. And I think a lot of people do, which is just like, who am I outside of work? And like even watching Harmony or Corbell when she gets fired in season 1, and like she's got like a legit like uh I don't even know what you call it, like temple almost, like in her home, like dedicated to her workplace. And I was like, whoa, like we so badly want to be like attached to the brands that we work for and to like be a part of that culture and really identify with it, to find belonging, kind of like what Baha was saying, which is like feeling a sense of belonging at work. But like how unhealthy, there's like such a like shadow element to that. And anyway, yeah, what's coming up for me is just like the inner work of owning these different labels and identities that we are constantly wearing, and that at the end of the day, like they're just labels. They're like kind of, I think about like our belonging badges at Culture Amp. You know, you're like, I'm a mom, I'm a plant parent, and like all these things. And that at the end of the day, you're just like a soul navigating this thing. And like I constantly remind myself when I log on for work, I'm like, my soul's not in a rush. You know, I love my job. I don't have any plans to leave, but I'm not gonna work at Culture Amp forever. You know, like it's like these constant reminders of like, how do I keep myself grounded in the work that I'm doing outside of all of this. But anyway, I'll stop talking now. Those are my random rants.
No, I think it's great. Thanks, Jesse. I'm wondering, as we're talking about this, I mean, is this something that we do only at work? I mean, I feel like we can show up differently for different people in our lives, no matter where we are, right? I mean, we all have different parts of ourselves. Anybody who studied internal family systems knows that we all have different parts, right, that show up. And I've been thinking about that a lot as I actually rewatched part of season 1. And but yeah, I think the difference with the procedure of going through severance is that you like if you didn't work there anymore, that person wouldn't exist, right? That person at work wouldn't exist anymore. But we all are carrying around these different parts of ourselves that show up in different ways, depending on the scenario or the circumstance, which is just very interesting to think about.
But I think the scary part too is that like work is such a high stakes environment, especially for those of us who live in the US. Like if you don't have a job, you are oftentimes putting yourself not at just financial risk, but health risk, because I mean everything comes from work. And not to like go down another path about like how we got here, but it's really scary that like it is such a high stakes situation, because if we don't have a job unexpectedly, it truly can be for many people a matter of life or death.
So
If
true.
If I can just jump in there too, the intersections of both life and work life, right, are, to John Jeff's point, I think there are so many interdependencies that it's very hard to create a truly severed experience. And so when workplaces are toxic and harmful and contributing negatively to one's mental health, one's physical health, it can't help but to have impacts on their home life and their general life in myriad ways. Even just from a financial standpoint, which I think a lot of organizations don't talk about, is when people are vying for pay equity and parity, a lot of times there are other implications of what they may not be able to do as a result of that, taking care of themselves, taking care of their families, all of those things that allow them to be more fully present at work. And so there are these striking parallels that happen in both of those universes, which is why I think employers and organizations have such a challenge right now, and a challenge, quite frankly, that they should have to create the best possible environments for the whole humans that step foot, whether that's remotely or on their premises every day.
Yeah, totally. Christy, you want to jump in?
Yeah, oh, so good. All of your comments. Oh my gosh, very rich. One theme that we haven't touched on too much yet that I think is so powerful is about feedback, employee feedback. And while Lumen is, the total extreme, this evil empire, I think that what was happening there, and it happened throughout, and maybe some of it was especially in season 2, but they're demonstrating that we're listening to you, and that we heard you and we care about you, so we're responding. And I do think it was season 2 when they made a whole video for them and had them sit down and say, like, these are all the things that we're doing because we care about you and we want to make sure you know that you're valued here and your voice matters, so to speak. And there were other ways that they would do that in very subtle ways where it was so it was such a contradiction in terms. And I think organizations, there's a whole spectrum, a continuum of some organizations truly thinking they're listening and responding, but clearly they're clueless, and the way they responded did not address the need. All the way to another end of the spectrum where there is like, yeah, let's do this to check it off the box, to have them, feel that we're listening. But I think that whole concept of employee feedback and management listening or leadership listening is a really, really just deep theme throughout.
Definitely.
I was also thinking about like, sorry, it's not following on to the feedback theme, but like, what even when they can override the switch when someone's not at work. And I was like, ugh, how many times have you like been hit up in the middle of the night for like, this thing has to get done right now, and it's like, oh my gosh, like, and how hard it is for people to even unplug to get on vacation, or like how challenge, like all the extra work that has to get done before you're even like capable of taking the time off. I just think about, I'm like, oh my gosh, like we have boundary setting as like so many people's self-worth is attached to their work life and the validation that they get at work. And then as a result of that, have a really hard time setting boundaries. And like, they're like, oh, well, I have to do all these other things. And I'm like, oh, it's so bad. We're just like, it comes back to like folks doing the inner work to give themselves worth and validation, and like seeking purpose and meaning outside of just their employer. Otherwise, we're going to continue to prey on that, and the organizations will continue to reap the rewards of our well-being of our lives. Yeah.
Totally agree. What do you think? I'm curious to hear what people think about like some of the experiences that they had at work as their innies and how that impacted them as their outies. They didn't really show that much. But for example, the trauma of going into the break room. I mean, I was feeling trauma as I was watching it. I mean, you didn't really see how it showed up in their personal lives as their outies.
You do with what's his name, Irving, who's like endlessly painting shit
That's
from his
true.
subconscious. And he has no idea why. It's like, oh gosh, but that's
Well, yeah. Then he saw the ink coming when he was at work. He saw that ink coming
Yeah.
down, the paint coming down on him.
Yeah, but no, that's a good point. Other than that, like, yeah.
I think I see it more in the other way around of like the outie trying to show up inside. And John Jeff, when you were talking about the like subtle ways that we are severed right now, like I was thinking about that made me think about yesterday how, or I am the head of HR for my company, and I'm like constantly trying to make space for people to bring their whole selves, and I feel weird saying that now because I'm like, what does that mean? But like making space for people to be vulnerable and everything, and like talk to me about what's going on in their lives, and then they'll say something, and then immediately I'm like, oh well, I have to say the HR thing now, and I have to. Well, there's a script. I have to. Nope, I have to do this, and I feel like that's almost there's the concept of like the whole reason we have weekdays and or weekdays and weekends is to like make it so that well work happens during the week because we have these 2 days where rest happens, and so work happens during this, and so like yeah, I think I feel like I'm going off on a tangent a little bit, but like I was talking to my mom last night about how hard I feel like it is to hold space for all of these people, and she was like, well, back in the day HR was just the people that kept you from getting in trouble and kept the company from getting in trouble. I'm like, well, that's not it anymore. But it is still so much there. And I feel like if I'm holding that space for people and then switch into it of like the HR thing, it's like a reminder of, well, that's just a sometimes thing and not an all the time thing. So I'm really thinking about that.
It's hard to wear both hats, like you said. I mean, you have a job to do. You're there for that job, but you are who you are as well. And that's the finesse, I guess, that's required to have both of those parts of you there at the same time. Interesting way to look at it, TJ. Thanks for sharing. Okay, we have Rose hand up next.
Yeah, I just to kind of jump off of the same topic, TJ and I are sharing the same thoughts, I think, about this. Because in regard to like the innie versus outie and like how they sort of impact each other in the show, the first thought that came to mind for me is how in most workplace environments, especially within like traditional corporate environments, you don't bring your personal life to work. Like the struggles and the challenges and the things that do like impact your nervous system and your ability to be productive at work and be engaged at work, you're not allowed to be as open about those things in a workplace environment. So I don't know, that's sort of the similarity that I see with like the innie versus outie and how they're like objectively separated because of that. And it's like the natural evolution of this culture where you can't bring your whole self to your work environment in the first place.
Yeah. Even that's what they say. They say bring your whole self, but yeah, not really.
Yeah, double speak nonsense most of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except those parts of you. We don't want to see both. Don't
There's
bring
an
that.
asterisk attached often.
Asterisk.
Yep.
Okay, Christy.
Ro, just building on what you said, when you have that visual that like you don't bring certain things to work, your struggles and so on. I just had this flash of like mirror image about social media that like we don't bring, we bring all that, oh, I'm so honored to have won this award, or oh, this is me on vacation, like all the good things. And we don't bring the struggles and a lot of the vulnerable things. And I'd never thought before about that whole line of thinking about what we bring to work and what we don't, and what we bring to social media and what we don't. And even though one is purely personal and the other is very professional, it says something to us about even when we can bring our whole self, we still curate it and choose the parts that we think are acceptable or that we want. So I don't know if anyone else reactions on that, but ooh, that was a visual road that you brought. It's like, oh, what are we choosing to bring there? And what are we choosing to bring in the other real public space?
Totally. Yes. So then what's real? Yeah.
I even like sometimes I feel like I would describe myself as an authentic person. I feel like I lean into having the courage to be vulnerable, and I think I show up like as I am. And also sometimes I think, pardon my French, but what the fuck does authenticity even mean? You know, it's like what? Like what how do you even what does that even mean? How does that even manifest itself? And sorry, that's like a way bigger meta question, but like, yeah, I shared in the chat, which was just like, I think kind of what TJ was saying was like, I want people to show up as their whole selves because like we know, and research even says that when people feel more comfortable to be themselves, it creates a more psychologically safe work environment, which therefore leads to folks performing at their best. All of that is like extremely well intentioned and well studied, and we have science to prove that. And also it's like, what's the shadow element of that? Like when does there is a pendulum, and like at what point on the pendulum does it kind of like swing to be like, oh, this is too far, maybe, you know?
Sometimes you don't know until you take that pendulum over to the side. Like, whoops, gotta go back a little.
I
Yeah.
love that. I think that's true, but I think that there are some things that are so innate in us in terms of not wanting to be performative. That is just, and I put it in the chat, that's just like driving to come out, right? I mean, I think we all have some level, majority of folks have some level of understanding of what is kind of acceptable or unacceptable, right? Like I can't wear my pajamas to work. Okay, that makes sense to me. And I probably shouldn't wear them to the grocery store either, except for during the pandemic, because that was acceptable. So, okay. Right. But other than that, I think most of us, when I think about authenticity, and I do culture work for a living, it is really very much focused on where are your core values as a human being, and what is it that allows you to derive pleasure by interacting with other humans on a daily basis in meaningful ways and through this medium or this environment of work, and aligning with that so that you're not putting on the airs, you're not doing all those things. And I know that that is a luxury that I will say for myself as a Black woman, that was not always the case, right? I remember what it was like to drive code switching, assimilation, masking, all those things, because those were required. But I think the more that we push back on that, and the more that we say, hey, if my most authentic self can show up, you're going to get prime productivity out of me, great collaboration. I feel successful. Everyone else feels successful. The organization is successful. That leads to profitability. So here's both the business case and the human case for authenticity. I think that it's very much what, in some regards, we saw in season 2 that I know we're not talking about yet, but it was this shove back that needs to happen. I think a lot of organizations, not physically, but metaphorically, need that shove back to say, in many regards, we're not going back to those things and those antiquated ways of thinking and existing anymore in a workplace. You want the best out of us? This is what it means for me. This is what is going to be required so you can tap into that.
Yeah, agreed. Thanks for sharing that, Yvonne. Hey, I saw in the chat, Lori, you were looking to figure out how to raise your hand. Did you have something you wanted to add in here?
Yeah, I guess just a couple of thoughts. And they're kind of random and maybe connected, but maybe not connected. So bear with me.
Go for it.
But one of the things that I thought was particularly interesting was that the innies appeared to be very kind and good-natured and almost happy compared to their outies, which I thought was very interesting. And then we've also had evidence a few times throughout the series where the outies really just don't care about their innies, which kind of brings me back to people not being able to set boundaries at work. And, you know, I can't finish the thought, but like being afraid to set those boundaries because maybe they don't care about their innies, or maybe they're more like, wow, this is the hand that's feeding me. You know, how do I weigh this? I know that's something that I've struggled with in the past. I recognize this is the hand that feeds me and I want to do well. And at times when I try to insert boundaries or I set boundaries, I feel especially guilty because other people don't do it. And then I think, well, gosh, it's my setting this boundary. going to cause an issue? Is this damaging my innie, so to speak? I don't know. Just wanted to kind of share that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, really good stuff. Totally. One more. I think did Tina also want to chime in?
Yeah, I
Look at
couldn't
me.
figure out how to raise my hand.
Thanks,
I
Tina.
unmuted.
Yeah,
Thanks.
go for it.
And actually I was just starting to type it in the chat. Yeah, and thinking about any Audi authenticity, all of these things, just to be real, sometimes my struggle as the HR person is I can't be real. Like I want to tell people exactly what I'm thinking. If they were my girlfriend or one of my like, like we're hanging out, I would say it much differently. And I know that's our job. I have to put some filters on, but man, that I think because just personally, I feel like I know my values, I kind of live by them. I have since I was, since I can remember. And now that, I've been in the HR space, I'm like, ooh, I have to censor myself a little bit. And that is the challenge. And I do a good job, like, don't get me wrong. And I will say the past couple of years, someone made a comment about like, how do we kind of get our companies or cultures on board with that? Especially with making sure no one's around, especially with my executive team, I'll say things like, you know, you can count on me for saying this, like for pushing you, right? Like I can either give it to you this way or I can give it to you that way. And you might not like that way, but that way is kind of what you need to hear. Like that might be what I might say to my partner, to my friends, whatever. So I don't know if anyone else struggles with that, but that's kind of the thing that I keep going back to with all of this.
You feel like they're listening when you say that? I mean, are they
They
responding
do.
to that stuff?
Yes, they
Good.
do.
Yeah.
And I will, and which I appreciate. But I've been here for 10 years. And so it's been a process. And I think just in the past couple of years, something has clicked because to be honest, like I kind of had this moment where I'm like, someone said in 2020 they went to the like I don't give a fuck moments. So there was a little part of me where I was like, listen, I was my head was blurred between inside and outside. I don't like that world. I'm moving beyond it. So I'm done a lot of work for that. And that also I've demonstrated that to the people that I work with. And so I think people can where I'm going with this is like my executive team like gets it and they trust me. They know that like I am being authentic when I'm
Yeah.
speaking with them.
Good. Yeah. Well, and you've taken the time to build the relationships too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
helpful.
But if I were to come into a new company, like that would be a process to build up to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. We got time for one more. Trav, I see you've got your hand up.
Is my audio working?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I actually have kind of the opposite experience in that about a year ago, I sold my place and I've been crashing in my mother's basement for the last year just because I'm waiting for the bubble to burst before I buy something. And I have the exact opposite in that at work, I'm completely unfiltered. Like I will say it like I mean it. And if you have a problem with it, I don't care. Fire me if you want to. Don't care. Bye. That'll be my my exit is the middle finger. I don't fucking care. And actually, it's really worked for me. Like I've never had more money or more praise since stopping caring. But being in the basement, I'm worried about being overheard by if mom's upstairs. Like she is the one I sever from. She is the one I put the mask on for, which is weird.
Yeah, very interesting. Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Good.
Yeah, well, I think it's partially a lack of trust.
Hmm.
I know that she will run her mouth, and so if I want something to stay a secret, then I just can't tell her.
Gotcha. Somebody's the
Whereas,
dynamic there.
at work, if something is a secret, it's a secret.
Right. Right. Interesting though, how we choose to sever in different ways. And maybe if we weren't having this conversation or if we hadn't been influenced by the show, we wouldn't even be aware of the fact that we're doing this severing, you know? It's just happening around us all the time. It's also kind of helpful, I think, to think about like when I'm having a conversation with someone, whether, you know, it's work related or not, to notice, are they being themselves right now? Or what part of themselves is showing up here right now in this moment? Because two people who are both severing and then coming together, like, which person am I really dealing with right now? Or which part of them is kind of interesting to think about. So I'd love to take it back to a question that Sarah put in the chat about how can we bring this to work? So given kind of what we've been talking about today, I mean, how does this inspire you to take some action at work with what you can control? You know, we can only kind of influence the people that we work with directly. We can only influence those that are around us. We can't necessarily maybe make a big influence on the culture immediately, but I'd love to hear some thoughts on that. You can either put it in the chat or someone come off mute. Someone said in the chat we do
Google.
our inner work, right? I saw that. We do our inner work, right? I saw that.
Yes,
Sorry.
I was just about to say that, Jennifer.
Okay, thanks,
Um,
Fadia.
it's I think for me, it has been doing the inner work. I had to do a lot of deprogramming of societal constructs that just did not align with who I am or the person that I want to be and how I want to show up for myself and people. And that is hard work and work that is intentional and time consuming. And I know that I know that there's privileges within my access to care and therapies and things of that nature that has allowed me to get really far in this journey. But when I started doing the inner work, the outer world started changing and looking like what I wanted it to be. And so now I'm at an organization that really just values who I am. I show up as authentically as I can. I am still a Black woman in America, but the fact that I have gotten this far and I feel so at ease in this organization, to me shows like, okay, I'm on the right path. So I
Yeah.
think that me showing up that way is influencing the culture at my organization. I'm seeing it happen. Just like other people feeling safer to be open, talk to me, share their opinions and really influence how leadership shows up so we can really get to the root of a really beautiful thing that we're creating here.
Beautiful. Love that. Jessica, did you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you. I think that's really beautiful. And it made me think about the role of leaders in doing their own work, right? So I'm watching the show and I'm thinking, well, first I should back up and say, for me, I was fascinated by the show, therefore here and loving every minute of this. But for me, I thought to myself, I would never do that because everything that makes me me in the workspace comes from the inner work that I've, in theory, done on that, right? My Audi has done. And the things that I think make me even relatively compelling to follow as a leader come from that space. Hi, Yvonne. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm here because of you. So for me, I couldn't do it. I couldn't sever because I don't think I'd be me at work. And then the work we need to do as leaders to create a space where our staff know that we are not, in fact, perfect, that there is space to learn and grow. They can bring their full self and do that work is critical. And that is hard. It's really hard. So many of you talked about vulnerability and what the stakes are high. They're really high. I love the points you made about what's on the line for all of us, but what's on the line if we don't do it?
Right.
And so that's what I always, I had a wonderful lunch with Yvonne recently where we talked about showing up your full self. And I will say, I've had experiences where recently I did that and the feedback has been wonderful, right? On a stage, giving a talk. But some people were like, wow, you didn't try to be polished. And I was like, I didn't. I thought, right, when you show up authentically. And so I think we have to be prepared to create that space as leaders, do the inner work, and then be prepared for how it's received. It's not always going to be received from the place that it came, right, in the right way. So kind of leaning into this idea that as leaders, we have a responsibility to be doing that work and creating a space where our teams can do the same, even though there's so much on the line.
Yeah, could not agree more. Could not agree more.
Mm.
Okay, well, we've got 3 minutes left. Sarah, did you want to make one quick comment?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So there's a lot that we've covered in 57 minutes, and I've been taking it all in. And, I see the question here, like season 2 discussion. I mean, there's so much that we haven't even covered when it comes to Severance. So, like, when I think back about everything that has just been left untouched, it's like the diving into Helly and her relationship with her her story arc, and what we find out about Corbell's bitterness towards Lumen, and why she has this passion for the company and this hidden agenda and deep passion and commitment to the brand, that we find out why she has this like we find out her why, and Mark, like why he is sat outside, and where his back and forth goes with Helly and his wife and his story. Like, we all have this back and forth and a reason why we want to be severed. And I think some of our reason why we want to be severed is today is we have no control. There is no on and off switch. The world today never stops. And as HR people, some of us on the line today who are our HR people, saying things like, we have to show up as our true authentic selves, and we're encouraging employees to do so, but we can't show up as our true authentic selves, and who supports us? And we're living in a lonely world, and who supports us? And we're burnout and exhausted. So how does this all relate to us as HR people? And we can't even show up as our authentic selves. And yeah, give me a mic. I can go for another 90 minutes on the topic, because there are days when I was watching the show when I was like, you know what? Put me in, coach. I'm ready to be severed. I'll pay out of pocket for this. So yeah, let's go with another Severance show follow-up with Culture First and have another conversation, because I think there's a heck of a lot here we can continue to dig into that has been left untouched today. I don't have all the answers, but I'm sure as hell ready to talk about it. And we didn't even cover the goats. So
I know. All right, well, let's leave it there. That's great. It sounds like we've got some great energy around this. Maybe Jesse and I can even pull out some themes of some particular topics and see where we want to spend a little bit more time, a little bit more info. Also, I love Sarah's plug on checking out the trauma chapter, because that group brings together some of these concepts and talks about them all the time. So we'll leave it there. Thanks all for coming today, for showing up and as your authentic selves. Love it. And thanks, Jesse, for the opportunity to facilitate today. Super fun.
Thank you. Can we take Baha had a great idea. Can we take a group photo? I know some people need to pop off.
Oh, shoot. Yes.
So if you are able to come to turn your camera on, great. Otherwise, you can leave. That's cool. Whatever. It was a treat to have you here. All right, ready? We're gonna take a photo. 3, 2, 1. Oh my gosh, hilarious. Oh, what a treat. All right, we're doing another one of these. We have to. That's and Natalia, we didn't even get to hear from you.
Yeah.
I'll save it for next time.
Yeah, save for next time. Perfect. I love it.
All right.
Culture First clap out. Jen, count us to 3, and then this meeting will convene. Thank you all for being here. Cheers to co-creating a better world of work. Until next time, Jen, count us out.
I'm gonna count down 3, 2, 1.